When you run into a conflict between opinion versus values, that's where you can get yourself in a little bit of a tricky situation.
Wouldn't his values be the values of the business, considering he founded this business?
You would hope so, but that isn't always the case.
Hi, I'm Faisal Karmali. Welcome to Karmali Exchange. Business owners need to help each other out. Keep on pushing to meet the needs of the customer will meet the needs of the business. Welcome to Karmali Exchange, and I'm excited. I have in 2022, she was inducted into the Canadian Marketing, Advertising, and PR Hall of Fame. She's an entrepreneur, has made a career of helping entrepreneurs build their brand. She's a leader in the public relations industry. On top of it, she's also teaches media relations at the university level. She's the founder and president of Worthington PR and Story. Paula, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you on here because there's been a lot that's been happening. Let's call it over the last few years. And we're going to pick on the big companies because they get a lot of the media attention. Let me throw this one case study that we've talked about a lot in the office here. Right out the gates, we want to pick on this one company, and we're just picking on them because they've made some headline stories. Lululemon, the former CEO and founder, recently and in previous years has been put in front of the public eye for a couple of his comments. One comment in particular, back in 2013, he said that some women's bodies just actually don't work for it. And he was referring to his yoga pants that he's been selling through Lululemon. When a company does something like that, Paula, when the CEO just speaks whatever's on their mind, good idea, bad idea, what's the whole strategy? Because you're the one that people will go to when shit hits the storm, or hits the fan, actually. What are your thoughts and tips for someone like this in a Lululemon situation?
Well, that's an interesting case study for sure. And I think the ideal situation from a PR professional perspective is come to us before that even happens so that we can avoid it happening down the road. It's one that we talk about through our media training that we do at Worthington PR, but I also bring it up in my media relations class at Mount Royal University. And it really comes down to preparation. And what is it that you want to come across as a leader? And I think the challenge that occurred there is you had a leader that was communicating opinion that maybe wasn't aligned with the values of the brand. And when you run into a conflict between opinion versus values, that's where you can get yourself in a little bit of a tricky situation.
So Paula, he's the founder though. Wouldn't his values be the values of the business, considering he founded this business?
You would hope so, but that isn't always the case. And so that obviously created, and we've seen it happen in other situations as well, where the values articulated maybe aren't the values that are necessarily being lived day in, day out. And it created an uproar for sure. I think the brand is still strong, but I think that his personal reputation probably took a little bit of a hit through that because it did make some people angry over the idea of a health brand. Then almost people perceived it as shaming. So that isn't necessarily what you want to be famous for.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing, because the word body shaming was plastered all over the internet when he made those comments. And then to add insult to injury, he's like the whole diversity and inclusion thing, stating that Lululemon is trying to become like the Gap, being everything to everybody. You just got to be clear that you don't want certain customers coming in, was his response to that. He is kind of discluded. So here's one comment that came from one of our viewers of the show. His response to that was probably in line with who he wants to service as a clientele. It's not open for everybody. Let's take a large luxury brand for a vehicle. Let's pick on Ferrari. Ferrari, everybody knows not everybody can afford a Ferrari. If the CEO said, this is not for everybody, if you want everybody to be part of Ferrari, go to another company like Honda or Toyota or Ford or GM. Ferrari's for only certain people. Is that wrong? Like, he's just speaking his truth.
I think that when you look at the amount of time you have in a media interview, which is a very short period of time, when we work with our clients, we'll say you've got about 27 words that you can use to get your most important key message across. Why would you choose that when there could be so many other fantastic messages that you could share in that moment? So I would have backed it up and said, well, what are the key messages that got lost in that conversation? Because I don't think any brand would ever want to come across, although some brands, might have a certain level of prestige to them, to your point, but they never want to come across that way. I think that even if we can't all go out and buy a Ferrari, we'd sure love to hold on to the dream of that.
Fair point. So then let's give your do's and don'ts when it comes to owners building the brand. I'm speaking of owners, not just CEOs who've been hired to run the company, but primarily founders and owners. What are the do's and don'ts for building the brand from a PR perspective?
Sure. Well, the term I like to use for people in that role is we talk about them as being the keepers of the brand. So you're protecting it. You're trying to find opportunities to make that brand grow and be positive. And so, as a keeper of the brand, you're always scanning the environment for potential opportunities and threats. So, opportunities could be something like putting out a press release when something really great happens for your company and welcoming in some opportunities to do media interviews. We call that earned media. And then being prepared for that. So having some media training, having a spokesperson ready, using some key messages to help you get your story across. When there's threats on the horizon, it's also being prepared and looking in advance at what's coming your way. So is there a potential issue on the horizon? Is your company at risk for a crisis? And if one was to occur, would you be prepared to be able to respond to it relatively quickly? So it's really about, as a keeper of the brand, being prepared for anything that can come your brand's way and knowing how to navigate that world so that no matter what, whether you're in a little bit of a tricky situation or something really great is happening, the person in your company who's dealing with the media is prepared to take that call because they know what to do. And what we find sometimes is that we love brands love approaching the media when there's something great, and then they freeze when there's something not so great. Yeah. And I always kind of use the term in good times and in bad, that we want to be able to form and have those lasting relationships with media, because you know that at some point, if you have a brand that's out there, that's being recognized, has some level of popularity, you're also open to risk of having not so good news come out, and really trying to stay ahead of it and manage it the best way that you can.
I love the fact that you talk about keeper of the brand. I thought of beekeepers. No matter what happens with the hive, you got to deal with it and just and be true to the core and nature of what's happening there. So I love what you said there. We're in an age right now, Paula, where the digital age, where people can put out messages, commentary, give their own opinions about things, even if it's not warranted, even if it's not accurate. It happens very easily, and regardless of the size of the company, you're at risk of something going wrong. So let me paint the picture. We had a friend of ours who was a hiring manager for I'd say a medium-sized company in this province. And they had a bunch of candidates. They had to select one candidate for this job, and they passed on the others. One of the people that this individual, my buddy, passed on, had a disability. He was visually impaired. And so the response on social media was, I didn't get hired because I'm visually impaired. I have a problem with this because there are a lot of people who will use a common denominator point, such as, I'm at a disadvantage because of the way I look, the way that I have a disability, the gender, my sexual preference, whatever, how I identify myself, whatever it may be. It comes out as that's the reason why, when really maybe you just suck and you didn't qualify. Like we went through hiring a bunch of people on our team. We had 750 applicants. I don't know everything about all those applicants, but 695 didn't get the job. They just didn't qualify. They didn't meet the criteria. So when that type of stuff happens, how does a company react, or should they react if you've got an individual who didn't get the job or is disgruntled?
Well, there's a couple things there. Hopefully, that the company has some sort of diversity, equality, inclusion statement or policy within that company that helps them communicate what they stand for within the company, and then that way they can lean in on making sure that's been adhered to, even if even if it was a question of not having the right skills, what have you. When it comes to social media, it can be a really tricky world. Social media moves quickly. You get all kinds of opinions. You get all kinds of perspectives. It can help. It can hinder. And a long time ago, colleague of mine used to always talk about, and I still use it: are they looking for an audience or are they looking for an answer? If they're looking for an audience, we probably don't want to engage with them because we're just helping them build the volume of their audience. If they're truly looking for an answer, then maybe there's an opportunity to have a conversation through direct messages or open up the opportunity for a follow up conversation. I think in the situation that you were talking about, trying to engage with that person and have a conversation about why they didn't get the position, and even having that upfront conversation before that person goes to social media is always ideal too. Again, trying to get ahead of it. But I always look at things on social media, and when we counsel clients, are they looking for an audience? Are they looking for an answer? If they're just looking for an audience, we probably don't want to fan the flames.
I think in today's social media, it's such a direct response and as quickly as you can get. And some people will just say, you suck. You didn't qualify. Too bad for you. And they're actually getting into this. We used to use the term Twitter battle. That kind of conversation. Isn't that also good PR? That you're actually like getting in there and fighting for your company's viewpoint. Doesn't that actually help the brand versus hurt the brand?
It all depends on what you say, because you have to be able to back it up. So I think leading with compassion is never a bad thing, even in the wild world of social media. Trying to have open communication is really important, but it really comes down to what you say and how you're saying it. Because whether it's through social media or whether it's something that you say in a media interview, you can't take it back. Once you've said it, it's out there. It can be interpreted. It can be paraphrased 3 years down the road. We've seen that too. And you can't take it back. So you have to be really careful with your words.
So, from a framing perspective, when we frame the response either on the same platform that the information came in, or maybe through a press release or whatever may happen, depending on the severity, of course, how do you battle or what's the way to kind of frame the hiring for diversity versus hiring the right person? What's kind of the words that we should be using? What's more acceptable today versus going after it in a Twitter battle, as I called it earlier?
Well, I think it's really about, again, coming back to the values of your brand. And so for us, in my own company, we'll always lean back on our values. And does a decision feel right based on our values? And we also have a diversity, equality, inclusion statement within our company as well. And in a perfect situation, you want to be able to have representation, but you also want to have the amazing people on the job. And I don't think one has to come at the cost to another. I think you can have it.
When you talk about an inclusion statement, value system, a lot of that sounds very big business. At what size should a business be actually exploring this? And how do they actually come to that, what their true value proposition and value statement is? And then also their inclusion viewpoints. How do they put that together if they're a 3-person, 10-person, 100-person company?
That's a great question, and it is big words. I honestly started when I was a solopreneur of one person. I knew in the early days, the first couple months in business, I wanted to know my navigational tool to make good decisions as a business leader. And so our values have evolved over the years as our team has grown as well. You're probably in the same boat in your organization. Things change. And that's the beauty of when you add more people to your team, you get to then have a bigger dinner table to sit at and talk about some of these things. So from a values perspective, we actually just went through a little bit of an evolution of them, and we're really happy where they're at. From a DEI perspective, that kind of official statement came more once we had employees, because we wanted to make sure that we were really clear that anyone that walks in the doors here is very welcome. And so that came a little bit after. But in terms of values, if someone's just starting out, take a look at companies that you look up to. And usually values will be on their website or in some of their materials. Look around at some of the companies you either look up to, companies you want to become, brands that you respect, and start to take a little bit of an inventory of what's the language they use, what are the words they use, what are your own personal values. I always love to think on a walk. I'll go take a walk and think about what's really important to me, write those down, go look at some other ones. And from there, we always say to have four-ish, but no more than six values, and make sure they're meaningful. So a great test you can do as well is, once you've got your values written down, hand them out to people and see if they can figure out that it's actually about your company. Because there's a lot of kind of, sometimes I call them overused words out there that aren't necessarily values. They're just baseline things that should be important to your company. Going through that exercise will help you evolve your business, evolve your thinking. And for me, they've continued to be a great decision-making tool for us.
I think, Paula, on certain times I've seen companies use charitable organizations or charities to support as a tactic to get sales. And I many times can smell right through that. And so when they start saying, for every one item you purchase, we'll donate an equivalent amount, or if you make a donation through us to support this charity, that'd be great. I can smell that it's fake many of the times. And I basically say, why don't you just cut the price and let me do my own charitable giving? I don't need your help in this situation. I think there's a lot of this happening to try to win the hearts of people for the dollars versus trying to win the hearts of the people because you believe in the cause. How do companies, handle those types of I call it fake sales?
Yeah. And I think it depends on the company. I mean, I'll push back a little bit. I think there's some companies doing that type of thing that do it very authentically and do it really well. I think that when you do partner with an organization or you're doing any kind of charitable giving, it has to be authentic, or people are going to see through it a little bit. And oftentimes, I believe that partnerships with charities need to be more than just cutting a check. I mean, those types of things are really important, but can you be an advocate for that organization? Can you go in and volunteer and, pack hampers or serve soup or be on the ground and really build that relationship and partnership? Something we did as an agency is we created an agency within an agency that services only not-for-profits. It's called Noble Arrow. And one thing that stands out for us is that we make it barrier free. So come to us with any budget, we'll make it work. And on the flip side, we'll not only do the work, but we're going to actually teach your team as we go, so that hopefully down the road, you can then go and create your own campaign and do it for yourselves. So is that more work? Yes. Does it take more time? Yes. Is it really aligned with our values and our brand? 100% yes. And so it feels authentic to us. It feels right. And so far, no one's questioned us on it. So I think that authenticity, and again, leaning back on values, can come into play there.
Okay, we've got a couple minutes left before we have to go. Paula, I want to know, in your vast experience, and I've had this in my businesses, I'm sure you've experienced this. I'd like to hear a story. Don't tell me any names, though. There are certain type of individuals who you just can't work with. They're not going to work well. What's some of the characteristics or some of the red flags that you've seen working with someone saying, get the hell away from me as quickly as possible? This is a train that's going to the wrong destination. What are some of the flags? And the reason why I'm asking this question is so that the business owners that are watching this can say, am I that red flag? Because it may not be beneficial for me. So we're kind of giving advice, but looking at the opposite end. What are the ones that are red flags for you?
Oh, well, I mean, thankfully, we've found some really amazing clients and partners over the years. I would say if we've had a bit of a discovery meeting with someone and I just think nope, this isn't going to work. Usually what I'll see is that person probably displays some very limiting beliefs. There's only one way. This is going to be the right way. Not open to new ideas, not open to different perspectives. Any real tone of outward pessimism. We're a really optimistic, positive company. Even if there's a crisis, we know we can work through it. We know we can build understanding. Or if there's just general toxic behavior, that's probably not going to be a great business partner for me in any manner. So really trying to find people who are solutions driven, who are eager to collaborate, and who are open to trying new solutions. And again, that idea of the keeper of the brand, I'll leave it at that, is if I don't think they're tending to their beehive very well, then that would be a bit of a flag for me too. Because if you don't have that in order, how can we keep your reputation strong?
Keep your reputation strong. Be a beekeeper for your brand. Don't screw it up, because if you're not coachable, you're not able, solutions oriented, you're not going to do well in this kind of world. And with the amount of cell phones that are out there that it can make or break your company, you definitely need someone like Paula and her team working with you. Paula, I want to thank you for joining us on the Karmali Exchange.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching the Karmali Exchange. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. You can also follow me on social media at Faisal Karmali, where we can continue the business conversation.